Hello. So I'm going to try the clue review a little different here since IG Live is not working so well with my UK internet. So last Thursday's game, we featured a 20-year Tawny Port on that. So I've got one example here from Graham's, but the one I put in the pick, the Quinta do Naval, is a really, really good one. That's also worth finding. I like Graham's as well, but Graham's is one of the sweeter styles, I would say, of Tawny. Like Quinta Naval definitely struck me as drier, as is Taylor. And then along with Ramos Pinto, those are ones that tend to pop up quite a bit on wine exams. In fact, I was looking back, going back to like October 2005. Port shows up often on fortified wine exams, 37 times. And of those 37 times, a 20-year Tawny showed up 8 times. That's the second most. Only one behind the most, which is a 10-year Tawny at 9 times. So for your blind tasting studies, really focusing on the Tawny ports are big on that. And so let's look at the clues. I know a lot of the context clues totally took people to the Douro and to Port, but let's look at some of the flavor and structure clues and see what kind of would lead you there. So clue number 1, dried figs. Clue number 2, dried oranges and herbs. Clue number 3, dried cherry. So dried. The takeaway for that is thinking to always think about the nature of the fruit. In any blind tasting, what is this fruit telling you about the conditions that it was in? And so when you think of dried, you can think of sun-dried, a passamento, like we're making Amarones, or long barrel aging, which is the case of Tawny Port. So it's not fresh fruit. It's not even fruit that's, you think of like making a pie. Like a lot of like New World Pinot Noirs that spent a good amount of time in oak, 18 months, 20 months, can taste almost like cherry pie. So it's not fresh cherry, but it's definitely cherry that's had a little bit going on to it, like pie filling. That's not going to be the case with Tawny Port because it's going far beyond that. It's going to be more dried in nature. Clue number 4, there was a lot going on. And I said there's several clues in there. And I wanted to really convey the pronounced intensity and complexity that these wines can have. So that one had tobacco spice, nuts in there, some more dried fruit, other spices, like there was some star anise and clove. There was a lot that you could have spent time looking at that photo, and I absolutely loved when I came across this. Like, yes, this is the perfect photo that almost like encapsulates this wine perfectly. Clue number 5, I did one of the little millionaire bites. So we had chocolate. We also had some caramel, which caramel can definitely pop up in some of these delicious wines. Just had to go. I love studying for this unit. Fortified unit was one of my favorite units to study for. And then clue 6, just to keep hammering the nuttiness, I had almonds as part of that. So it was definitely, you think of the theme, dried fruit, nutty, and complex. So I hope that those clues alone kind of got you thinking about some of the winemaking and viticulture that possibly could have gone into it. And then once we got to the structure clues, then I was really wanting you to get closer. Like, for instance, first clue, color clue, pale tawny. In tawny, this is made from a red wine. So there's some red in it, but it's pale because you can see, straight through the stem. Difference, especially when you think of like Madeira, that's made from white grapes, like the noble varieties. I mean, yes, I know Tinta Negra is a red grape, but you think of like, a 15-year Verdelho. Being made from a white grape, it's not going to have the little red tint to it. So with it further age, it's going to be more in the amber or brown category. Same thing with sherries, made from Palomino, a white grape. But port, obviously there's white port, but when we think of our Tawny ports, these are made from red grapes. So tawny color. Pronounced intensity, all those different clusters of clues, a lot going on there. Medium plus to high acid. And I think this kind of stirred a few people off because, port, yes, it's not going to be anywhere near the acidity of Madeira, but particularly when you think about the ports that are built for aging, your vintage ports, your 20-year Tawnies, 30-year Tawnies, 40 years, they need some acid to help them in that aging process. And so it's going to have more acidity than your basic tawny and your basic ruby. And so that's something, again, next time you're trying it, tasting it, port, think about some of that mouth watering. And again, you can do the blue steel Zoolander that we talked about in our IG Live yesterday with Noelle. And my mouth is watering. It's filling up with water. This wine's got more acid than those basic ports because it's built for aging. And so that's something in blind tasting you want to think about a little bit. Medium plus to fine grain tannins. This is another thing that you have to remember. This is made from red grapes. So when you're writing your notes, you do want to include tannins. And the tannins are very fine, but especially on the finish there, you can feel a little bit of that tannin extract. It's really easy to forget about tannins in fortified wines. Medium plus body. Actually, I might even say full body. This one's got a little bit more heft on there. But when I think of full body, I usually think of like vintage ports, which are very, very full. But this has definitely got some body there. And of course, high alcohol. This one here, 20%. So, and you feel the alcohol. It's really well integrated, but you feel it. You know you're drinking a wine that's got some oomph to it. So the things that would lead you to tawny over ruby, obviously, is the dried fruit. Again, a little bit more acid because this one's built for aging, but that dried fruit nature is a huge one. And of course, you can see that in the color. Quality levels, as you're going between 10 and 20. No group's been lucky enough, as far as I could tell, to get like a 30-year or even a 40-year as part of their exam wines, which, again, super lucky if that happened. So 10 and 20 are more common. Those are going to be tough. It is tough to go back and forth between the two. But with the 20, you expect a little bit more complexity, a little bit more depth, maybe a little bit more acid, built for longer aging, maybe a little less sweet, because as wines age, when all the other complexities come, the perception of sweetness diminishes. We see the same thing, like even, you go to the aged Sauternes and Tokai. It's still there, the sugar's still there, but it's less noticeable, especially with the balance of the little bit higher acid. But you're going to be really fine hairs between them. And so if you're writing your note and you're writing a note for a 10-year tawny or you're writing your note for a 20-year tawny, there's going to be so many overlaps. So don't stress out over nailing the exact one. Just kind of think about the complexity of it. Think about what the nature of the fruit is telling you, and help that guide you as much as you can. And then you'll be in good shape. So I'll leave you with that. And with that, I'm going to get on to the next games, Mr. Grape.